Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachyapya Deshatarine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pachyapya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadada Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. We'll do this small bhajan. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari 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 Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Gauranita 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 Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Guru Deva 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 Nitya Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Hari Bol, Nitya Gaura Hari Bol. Hare Krishna. So before we start our class, also we will recite we'll recite these prayers every time. You can try to follow after me. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagagana Raghunatamvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaidam Savadutam Parjana Sagitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patidanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I'm going to use a study guide, and I already uploaded that in the Google Drive, so you'll be able to access it as well at your convenience. So this guide is created by one of my teachers who is from Bombay. So this is a very nice study guide. So we will be using throughout our course this particular study guide, and which will be very, very helpful for us to follow. So I'm just sharing this in the screen. You all can hear me, right? Can one of you unmute and tell whether you're able to hear me properly?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, very good, very good. So this is a study guide created by one of our teachers from Bombay. It's an excellent study guide which will be very helpful for us to to follow this course. By the way, we also have a new participant today. So we have His Grace Pradeep Shraf Prabhu from Indore had joined. Today is the first time he's joining. So he used to attend sometimes when he was visiting Seattle. His daughter lives in Seattle. His daughter and son-in-law, they used to attend our classes regularly. Then when he was visiting, Seattle, he had come and attended our classes sometimes. Now he wants to join regularly here. So thank you, Pradeep Prabhu, for joining. So this is the study guide we'll be using. This is a very nice, notes created and very, very, very useful. So basically, this is the structure of the first chapter of Bhagavad-gita. So first chapter of Bhagavad-gita, in Sanskrit it is known as Arjuna Vishada Yoga, and then Prabhupada translates as observing the armies on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. So this first chapter contains two sections. Section 1 is the introduction, verses 1.1 to 1.27. Then section 2 is Arjuna's 5 reasons not to fight, that is 1.28 to 1.46. And then the first section again is divided into 3 subsections. Subsection A is the preparation for war, 1.1 to 1.11. And subsection B is the signs of victory for the Pandavas. And then subsection C is Krishna as Bhakta Vatsala. So that is verse 1.21 to 27. And then we will try to cover, section 1, the subsection A, that is 1.1 to 1.11. We will try to see as much as we can cover. And if you are not able to complete the whole subsection, we will continue next week. So subsection A, which is the preparation for war, right? The text 1.1 we read last week. Dhrita Rashtra Uvacha, right? So actually King Dhritarashtra inquired. What is it he inquired? Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre Samaveda Yutsavaha Mamaka Pandavaschaya Kim Akurvata Sanjaya. He is telling, right? He is asking Sanjaya, his assistant secretary, that O Sanjaya, after my sons and the sons of Pandu assembled in the place of pilgrimage at Kurukshetra, desiring to fight, what did they do? So then we also last week read the purport, right? The summary of the purport is there in the notes. The purport is very nicely, he breaks down the points, what Prabhupada is giving in paragraphs. So this way, it's easy to understand when we break down that paragraph of purport into bullet points. It's easy to remember and understand. So okay, why is it not showing up? Okay. Hare Krishna. Yeah. So this, I'm trying to share it better option. I'm just checking. Okay. Yeah, this is much better. You can all see this better, right? Yeah. So this practical application from the section 1 is that in this chapter 1 repeatedly presents two themes. What are the two themes? Basically, the Lord's protection. Devotees who surrender to the Lord's protection are assured victory regardless of the material odds. And then the second practical application point is Lord as an intimate servant, Bhakta Vatsala, right? Even though the Supreme Lord is the supreme source of everything, supreme proprietor of everything, supreme controller of everything, and supreme enjoyer of everything, Bhagavan, one who possesses all the six opulences in complete. Even though we are all the Jivas are his eternal servants, Lord is the supreme eternal master. Even though he is the supreme eternal master, he likes to serve his own devotees. The Lord wants to become servant of his own servant because he possesses that opulence of renunciation. He is not attached to anything. So Lord doesn't mind serve his own devotees. So that is one of the lesson from this first chapter, is that how Krishna, him being the supreme personality of Godhead, he agreed to become servant of his own servant. He wanted to become the chariot driver of his own servant, Arjuna. Becoming a chariot driver for a personality like Arjuna is not an easy thing. How many of us would like to become a driver for, if you have a car driver, if you are a chauffeur, right? Would you like to become a car driver for your own driver? No, but Lord Krishna agreed to become a chariot driver. Becoming a chariot driver for Arjuna is not an easy thing. Because Arjuna, when he was fighting so much with intensity, he didn't have time to direct Krishna to go right or left or straight. Whenever he wants Krishna to go straight, whenever he wants Krishna to go left, he will turn left. He will just using his foot, he will just kick Krishna on his left hand side. Then Krishna knows that he has to turn left. Whenever he wants Krishna to turn right, the chariot, Arjuna will kick him using his right foot on the right hand side of Krishna. Then he will go right. Whenever he wants Krishna to go straight, he will kick in the middle of the back. So that's what it means to become chariot driver for Krishna, chariot driver for Arjuna. Krishna, him being such an exalted supreme personality, still he agreed to become chariot driver for his own servant. That is because that is his love for him. The Bhagavad-gita introduces Krishna, the supreme personality of Godhead, as the intimate servant of his own devotees. That is as Arjuna's chariot driver. So as I said, the verse 1, Dhritarashtra inquired after my sons and the sons of Pandu assembled in the place of pilgrimage, Dharmakshetra at Kurukshetra, desiring to fight. What did they do? Right? So here in the purport, Prabhupada actually gives down these bullet points. Bhagavad-gita is the perfect theistic science. Why? Because it is spoken by the Lord himself. Who else can give the perfect knowledge than the Supreme Lord? Because he is the supreme source of everything, supreme creator of everything, supreme proprietor of everything, supreme enjoyer of everything. He knows everything. So because of that, when the Lord speaks, Lord's words are perfect. That is why it's called perfect theistic science. And how to study Bhagavad-gita? It should be studied scrutinizingly, and with the help of devotees of Sri Krishna, and without personally motivated interpretations. And then it should come in the line of disciplic succession, right? As Krishna says in Bhagavad-gita 4th chapter, this science of Bhagavad-gita was in the beginning of creation. I taught to sun god Vivashwan, and Vivashwan spoke to his son Ikshvaku, and Vivashwan spoke to his son Manu, and Manu spoke to his son Ikshvaku. Like that, it was coming in a disciplic succession, and the saintly kings received this knowledge, in this disciplic succession. Over the period of time, as it appears to be lost, Arjuna, I am here again to speak this knowledge, to re-establish the tradition. I have chosen you because you are my friend and devotee. Evam parampara praptam imam rajarishyo vidva sakalena magata yoga nashta parantapa. So this has to be received in disciplic succession. If you do not receive in disciplic succession, then, right, misinterpretation will happen. Like, for example, so whatever Krishna tells, right, so Arjuna understood in certain way, and if you do not come to the same conclusion as Arjuna, then we have not understood Bhagavad-gita properly, right? So as Prabhupada mentions, a lot of people actually take this conversation as some kind of a friendly conversation. Conversation between Krishna and Arjuna is between some two friends. And then Krishna motivated Arjuna to fight, and which is not moral. That is not true at all. So this, if Bhagavad-gita is a conversation between two friends, it will not be a scripture. It will not, be applicable for all time, all places, and all circumstances. And it is applicable to all of us. The example of clear understanding of Bhagavad-gita, it is given in Gita itself, right? As Arjuna understood, we should also come to the same conclusion. The benefits of such a study of properly understanding Bhagavad-gita, one can surpass all the studies of Vedic wisdom and all scriptures of the world. If somebody had understood Bhagavad-gita properly, he can understand not only all the Vedas, but all the scriptures, whether it's any other religion also, everybody can understand the essence of all the religious teachings. The specific standard of Bhagavad Gita is that it contains all that is contained in other scriptures, right? But also that which is not to be found elsewhere. If you find something in Bhagavad Gita, if you find something in any other scripture, that will be there in Bhagavad Gita. If you do not find something in Bhagavad Gita, it will not be there anywhere else. And Dhritarashtra inquiry reveals that he was doubtful and fearful, right? Because he was partial to his own sons. Why? He called his sons as Kuru and his nephews as Pandavas. And then he used the two words, Dharma Kshetra and Kurukshetra. Right? The importance is that Kurukshetra is a sacred place of pilgrimage from immemorial time of Vedic age. It is not that Kurukshetra became famous after the war. Kurukshetra is mentioned even in the Rig Vedas much before the war happened 5,000 years ago. So Kurukshetra is always a holy place. So it's a place of worship even for heavenly denizens. Even the demigods in the previous yuga, they used to come down and perform different worships. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is personally present on the Pandavas side, right? Because the Lord is present on the Pandava side, right? And Pandavas are virtuous, right? So therefore the holy place may influence them. And Dhritarashtra is fearful, right? Fearful about the whole influence on the fate of the battle, because it may influence his own sons to compromise, or he hoped that under the holy influence the Pandavas may renounce their claim to avoid bloodshed. Actually, Dhritarashtra did not want compromise in the war, because if the Pandavas do not fight this war, they might again come to claim for the kingdom again. He want once for all this war to be settled. So hence he did not want compromise. So he was afraid of two reasons of this holy place, because it may influence his own son, because even though he is impious, because of the holy place, he might give up fighting. Or the Pandavas, them being like virtuous, they might give up fighting. He didn't want either one of the party to compromise, because he wanted an outcome so that the claim is settled. He doesn't want the Pandavas to come and claim for the land again, the kingdom again. So, and then Prabhupada gives this analogy of paddy field, how the unnecessary weeds has to be taken out. Similarly, in the religious field of Kurukshetra, and the presence of the father of all religion, Shri Krishna, unwanted plants like Dhritarashtra and his son Duryodhana and others would be wiped out. So this is the the focus of learning in the purport of the first verse. In the second verse, right, we are going to continue reading the second verse now. Sanjaya Uvacha Drishtva tu Pandavanikam Vyudam Duryodhanastada Acharyam Upaksangamya Raja Vachanam Abravet. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Sanjaya said, O king, after looking over the army arranged in military formation by the sons of Pandu, King Duryodhana went to his teacher and spoke the following words. Purport. Dhritarashtra was blind from birth. Unfortunately, he was bereft of spiritual vision. He knew very well that his sons were equally blind in the matter of religion, and he was sure that they could never reach an understanding with the Pandavas, who were all pious since birth. Still, he was doubtful about the influence of the place of pilgrimage, and Sanjaya could understand his motive in asking about the situation and the battlefield. Sanjaya wanted, therefore, to encourage the despondent king and thus assured him that his sons were not going to make any sort of compromise under the influence of the holy place. Sanjaya therefore informed the king that his son Duryodhana, after seeing the military force of the Pandavas, at once went to the commander-in-chief Dronacharya to inform him of the real position. Although Duryodhana is mentioned as the king, he still had to go to the commander on account of the seriousness of the situation. He was therefore quite fit to be a politician. But Duryodhana's diplomatic veneer could not disguise the fear he felt when he saw the military arrangement of the Pandavas. See, Duryodhana is very, very diplomatic. Duryodhana is not a foolish person. He might be impious, but he is very intelligent materially. He is cunningly intelligent. He knew that the army formed by the other side commander-in-chief, Drishtadimna, was the commander-in-chief for the other side. He is the one arranged the Vyuga on the first day. He went to Dronacharya and he said that, right, that look at the army farm, the formation formed by your own disciple, So we'll read the next verse. In that verse, he is going to speak. This is Duryodhana speaking, right? Pachayetam Panduputranam Acharya Magatim Chamum Vyudam Drupada Putrena Tava Shishyena Dhimata. O my teacher, behold the great army of the sons of Pandu, so expertly arranged by your intelligent disciple, the son of Drupada. Purport. Duryodhana, a great diplomat, wanted to find out the defects of Dronacharya, the great Brahmana commander-in-chief. Dronacharya had some political quarrel with King Drupada, the father of Draupadi, who was Arjuna's wife. As a result of this quarrel, Drupada performed a great sacrifice by which he received the benediction of having a son who would be able to kill Dronacharya. Dronacharya knew this perfectly well, and yet as a liberal Brahmana, he did not hesitate to impart all his military secrets when the son of Drupada, Drishtadimna, was entrusted to him for military education. Now, on the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Drishtadimna took the side of the Pandavas, and it was he who arranged for their military phalanx after having learned the art from Dronacharya. Duryodhana pointed out this mistake of Dronacharya's so that he might be alert and uncompromising in the fighting. By this, he wanted to point out also that he should not be similarly lenient in battle against the Pandavas, who were also Dronacharya's affectionate students. Arjuna, especially, as was his most affectionate and brilliant student, Duryodhana also warned that such leniency in the fight would lead to defeat. So the background is that Drupada, the king of Panchala Desh, right? Drupada and Dronacharya, they went to the same Gurukula to study together under the same teacher. And they become very good friends in the Gurukula in their childhood. And then after the Gurukula education was over, Drupada went back to his kingdom, became a king eventually. And Dronacharya, him being a very simple Brahmana, he was very poor. One time his son Ashwatthama did not have, even milk to drink. Because other children were drinking milk. When he asked his mother, right? And then because she didn't have milk to give, she just took some, some dough, some flour and mixed it with water and gave it as a milk to her son. The other children made fun of Ashwatthama at that time. Oh, this is not milk. This is, some just flour mixed with water. So this actually gave great pain to, Kripi, Dronacharya's wife, the mother of Ashwatthama. And then when Dronacharya saw the situation, he felt very poor. And then he remembered his childhood friend, Drupada. And then he thought he can go and visit Drupada. Maybe he can give some financial help for him. So he went to the kingdom of Drupada. So when he went to see the, Drupada was actually the king at that time, but he was acting as if he doesn't know him. Then at that time, actually, Dronacharya points out, oh, my dear friend, don't you not recognize me? We were studied together, we are friends. At that time, Drupada says that, oh, friendship can be only among equals. You are a poor Brahmana, I am a king. How can we be friends? So in that way, he insults Dronacharya. And Dronacharya, he felt insulted and he wanted to teach a lesson to Drupada. And then later, Dronacharya become the guru for the Pandavas and the Kauravas. And then as a Guru Dakshina, Arjuna goes and defeats Drupada kingdom and then brings Drupada as a prisoner to Dronacharya. Dronacharya at that time says, you said to Drupada, he said that you said only friendship can be among equals. I will take half of the kingdom. You keep half of the kingdom. So I am also have kingdom now. So now we equals, let's say, stay as friends. But Drupada, him being a Kshatriya, he felt insulted. He wanted to take revenge. So hence he actually conducted a big yajna, praying to Lord Shiva. In that yajna was two children born. One is Draupadi, and then another is this Drishtadyumna. And Drishtadyumna was actually born specifically with the benediction that he will be able to kill Dronacharya. Dronacharya very well knew that this son was, Drupada received this son to kill Dronacharya specifically. But even though that is the case, when Drupada was, the Drishtadyumna was sent to Dronacharya to learn the military science, he did not restrict. He did not actually stop teaching that lesson, because he saw that he is a qualified student. He is the son of the king. He is a proper Kshatriya. He needs to be taught military science. So him being a, broad-minded Brahmana, so he did not actually, Brahmana's, duty is to teach to the qualified person. So he taught this, the science of military art to his own person who is going to kill him eventually, Drishtadyumna. He did not rest. He did not actually hesitate. So that's the thing. Like now here, Duryodhana is pointing out this mistake. You are very lenient. Who taught this? You taught this military science to your student Drishtadyumna, even though you knew very well that he is going to kill. So you cannot be lenient like this again, because I know the Pandavas were very, very dear to you, especially Arjuna was a very dear disciple of you. So you should not be lenient in fighting. If you are lenient in fighting, the outcome will be disastrous. Like that, he was politically pointing out the mistake of Dronacharya. So the next verse, 1.4. Atra sura maheshvasha bhima arjuna samayuddhi yuddhana viratascha drupadascha maharatah. Here, actually Duryodhana is continuing. Here in the army are many heroic bowmen equal in fighting to Bhima and Arjuna. Great fighters like Yuddhana, Virata and Drupada. Purport. Even though Drishtadyumna was not a very important obstacle in the face of Dronacharya's very great power in the military art, there were many others who were causes of fear. They are mentioned by Duryodhana as great stumbling block on the path of victory, because each and every one of them was as formidable as Bhima and Arjuna. He knew the strength of Bhima and Arjuna, and thus he compared the others with them. So in the battlefield, in the Pandava side, there are not only Pandava and Bhima and Arjuna were great warriors, Maharathis. There are others who are also there, like Yudhana, Virata, and then Drupada. They are all great warriors. So next verse. Dushtakedus Chekitanaha Kasirajascha Viryavan Purujit Kunti Bojascha Saibhyascha Narapungavaha. There are also great heroic powerful fighters like Drishtaketu, Chekitana, Kasiraja, Purujit, Kunti Boja, and Saibhya. 1.6. Yuddhamanyuscha Vikranta Uddhamajoscha Viryavan Saubhadra Drupadyescha Sarva Eva Maharataka. There are the mighty Yuddhamanyu, the very powerful Uddhamauja, the son of Subhadra and the sons of Draupadi. All these warriors are great chariot fighters. These are all spoken by, Duryodhana. Ashmakam tu Vishittaye Tan Niboda Nividotama Nayaka Mama Sainyascha Samjnartam Tan Bravimete. He's telling, but for your information, O best of the Brahmanas, let me tell you about the captains who are especially qualified to lead my military force. After telling who are all the great personalities on the Pandava side, he wants to brag about his own side now. Bhavan Bhishmascha Karnascha Kripascha Samitam Jayaha Ashwattama Vikarnascha Somadattis Tadaivacha. There are personalities like you, Bhishma, Karna, Kripa, Ashwattama, Vikarna, and the sons of Somadatta called Bhurishrava, who are always victorious in battle. Purport. Duryodhana mentions the exceptional heroes in the battle, all of whom are ever victorious. Vikarna is the brother of Duryodhana. Ashwattama is the son of Dronacharya. And Somadatti or Bhurishrava is the son of king of the Bahilikas. Karna is the half brother of Arjuna, as he was born of Kunti before her marriage with King Pandu. Kripacharya's twin sister married Dronacharya. All these personalities are there in his side. Anyecha Bhavascha Sura Madartha Tyakta Jivitaha Nana Shastra Prakaranaha Sarva Yuddha Visharadaha. Is telling, there are many other heroes who are prepared to lay down their lives for my sake. All of them are well equipped with different kinds of weapons, and all are experienced in military science. Purport. As far as others are concerned, like Jayatratha, Kritavarma, and Shalya, all are determined to lay down their lives for Duryodhana's sake. In other words, it is already concluded that all of them would die in the battle of Kurukshetra for joining the party of the sinful Duryodhana. Duryodhana was, of course, confident of his victory on account of the above mentioned combined strength of his friends. Aparyaptam tat ashmakam balam bhishma abhirakshitam paryaptam tva idam etasham balam bhishma abhirakshitam. Is telling, our strength is immeasurable and we are perfectly protected by grandfather Bhishma, whereas the strength of Pandavas carefully protected by Bhima is limited. Purport. Herein, an estimation of comparative strength is made by Duryodhana. He thinks that the strength of his armed force is immeasurable, being specifically protected by the most experienced general, grandfather Bhishma. On the other hand, the forces of the Pandavas are limited, being protected by a less experienced general Bhima, who is like a fig in the presence of Bhishma, Bhishma. Duryodhana was always envious of Bhima because he knew perfectly well that if he should die at all, he would be killed by Bhima. But at the same time, he was confident of his victory on account of the presence of Bhishma, who are all far superior general. His conclusion that he would come out of the battle victorious was well ascertained because he felt that all the parties in his sides are very, very great warriors. He was confident that he will be able to win the war, right? Also, right, the army, his strength is, it's mentioned that the phalanx of army arranged, assembled in both the sides. There are 11 Akshwani of warriors in the Kaurava's side, and there are only 7 Akshwani of warriors in the Pandava side. 11 is to 7, totally 18 Akshwanis. 11 is to 7 on any statistical measure, right? Easily 11 should win. It is not just 1 or 2, like almost, 4 Akshwanis more warriors are there. So that means he was confident that he'll be able to win. So that is the one, that's why he was feeling very confident that he'll be able to win the war. So I will show you what an Akshwani means. An Akshwani means, so this is what. Yeah. So this is what an Akshwani means. So these are the different types of division in the Vedic tradition. Pati means 1 chariot, 1 elephant, and 3 horses with soldiers and 5 infantry soldiers. And the head of the division will be called as Patipal. Shenamukham means there will be 3 chariots, 3 elephants, and then 9 horses with soldiers and 15 infantry soldiers. The head of the division is called Senamukhi. So like that, 1 Akshwani means there will be 21,870 chariots and then 21,870 elephants with warriors, and then 65,610 horses with soldiers, and then 1,09,350 infantry soldiers, right? So this constitutes an Akshwani, right? So totally, this the head of that unit will be called Mahasenapati. So totally there are 11 Akshwani of warriors were there in the side of the Duryodhana, the Kauravas, and then only 7 Akshwani was there in the side of the Pandavas, right? The 1 Akshwani, as I said, 21,870 chariots, 21,800 elephants, 65,610 horses, and 1,09,350 foot soldiers. The army size on the Pandava side is 7 Akshwani, and then the Kaurava side is 11 Akshwani. The commander-in-chief for the Pandavas is Dhriഷ്ടdyumna, and then the commander-in-chief for the Kauravas, right, was Bhishma, Drona, Karna, Salya, and Duryodhana. It was changing. Until Bhishma fell down, it was Bhishma. After that, it was Drona. After Drona fell down, it was Karna. After Karna fell down, it was Salya. And after that, Duryodhana himself became the commander-in-chief, right? Maharati means he can fight 60,000 warriors at the same time. Pandava side, there is only 1 Maharati, right? That is Arjuna. Whereas in the Kaurava side, there are 4 of them are called Maharathis. Who are they? Bhishma, Drona, Karna, and Ashwatthama. All of them are considered to be Maharathis. So Arjuna was only 1 There are 4 Magarathis. Magarathi means with 60,000 warriors, he can fight simultaneously at the same time. And then the Adhirathi means he can fight with 10,000 warriors at the same time. That is Yudhishthira, Bhima, Drishtadimna, Gadotkaja, Satyaki and Yutsu. These are the Adhirathis in the Pandava side. Whereas in the Kaurava side, it's Salya, Somadatta, Bhurishrava, Bhagadatta, Jayatratha and Kritavarma. They are all considered to be again Adhirathis. So if you look at statistically, all the odds are against the Pandavas. And then that's why Arjuna was, no, Duryodhana was very confident that he can win. So in that mindset, right, he was speaking all these words. He was confident that he can win the war. He felt that his strength of the army, his army strength is immeasurable, whereas Bhima's army, right, arranged by the head of commander-in-chief Bhima, right, so arranged by Drishtadimna, that is actually is limited. That's what he said. So 11th verse, this is the final verse of this section. Ayanescha sarveshu yata bahan avastitaka bhishmam eva birakshantu bhavanta sarva evahi. So now here is the important point Duryodhana is speaking. Even though our army, which is protected by Bhishma, is very, very, big compared to the Pandavas, but still he is giving a warning. All of you must give full support to grandfather Bhishma as you stand at your respective strategic points of entrance into the phalanx of the army. Purport. Duryodhana, after praising the prowess of Bhishma, further considered that others might think that they had been considered as less important. So in his usual diplomatic way, he tried to adjust the situation in the above words. He emphasized that Bhishma Deva was undoubtedly the greatest hero, but he was an old man. So everyone must especially think of his protection from all sides. He might become engaged in the fight, and the enemy might take advantage of his full engagement on one side. Therefore, it was important that other heroes not leave their strategic positions and allow the enemy to break the phalanx. Duryodhana clearly felt that the victory of the Kurus depended on the presence of the Bhishma Deva. He was confident of the full support of Bhishma Deva and Dronacharya in the battle because he well knew that they did not speak even a word when Arjuna's wife Draupadi, in her helpless condition, had appealed to them for justice while she was being forced to appear naked in the presence of all the great generals in the assembly. Although he knew that the two generals had some sort of affection for the Pandavas, he hoped that these generals would now completely give it up, and they had, as they had done during the gambling performances. Yeah. So here you can see how diplomatic Duryodhana is, right? He is saying that Bhishma is great personality. He is our commander-in-chief. So because Bhishma is glorifying Bhishma, others should not think that they are less important. So Bhishma is a old person who you all should protect. So like that he was playing with diplomatic words, So he is very, very cunningly intelligent. He is trying to speak all these words. So this is the end of, subsection A from the first chapter, section 1, right? So here, right, these are the focus of learning, the important points, right? Duryodhana, although mentioned as a king, goes to the commander on the account of seriousness of the situation, points out Duryodhana's mistake, and then mentions great heroes equal to Bhima and Arjuna. Why? Because he compares them to Bhima and Arjuna because he knew the strength of Bhima and Arjuna. Why he mentioned Chandra's heroes? Because they were great stumbling blocks on the path of victory, as each and every one of them was formidable as Bhima and Arjuna. Mentions heroes who are ready to lay down their lives for me, like Jayatratha, Kritavarma, Salya. Praises Bhishma. He was confident of the full support of Bhishma Deva and Dronacharya because they did not protect Draupadi when she was insulted. And although Bhishma and Drona have affection for Pandavas and might become lenient, he hoped that they will give up all the affection now. And he asked for everyone's support for Bhishma because Bhishma Deva was undoubtedly the great hero, but he was an old man and the enemy might take advantage of his full engagement on one side. So he wanted everyone to feel important. The focus of learning is that why Sanjay had described Duryodhana's actions first, because Dhritarashtra was blind from birth and also bereft of spiritual vision. He knew that his sons were equally blind in the matter of religion. And Dhritarashtra was afraid that under the influence of the place of pilgrimage, his sons may make some compromise. And then the names of warriors on the both the sides is given in verses 1.4 to 1.9. And then Duryodhana compared Bhishma to Bhima, less experienced general Bhima and more experienced is Bhishma. Because Duryodhana knew if he should die at all, he would be killed by Bhima and therefore was envious of Bhima. Bhima is like a fig in the presence of Bhishma. And what made Duryodhana confident of victory? The above mentioned strength of his friends, presence of Bhishma as a far superior general, and then he was confident of the full support of Bhishma and Drona. These are the reasons why he felt he was confident. So the next section is the signs of victory of Pandavas, verses 1.12 to 1.20. That we will continue next week. So every week we will try to cover one section as much as possible. If a particular section is more than what we could cover in the designated time, we will continue the following week. So now we covered the first section, which is verses 1.1 to 1.12. This is the preparation for war. The introduction, preparation for war. The next subsection of the first section is signs of victory for the Pandavas. So that we will cover next week. So at this point, any comments, any questions? If you have any comments or questions,
At this point, no questions. Thank you, Swamiji.
Yeah, this is basically introduction. Basically, it sets the battlefield. The philosophy of Bhagavad-gita have not started yet. It's just the prelude. What's happening in the battlefield? It's all straightforward. Prabhupada just gives in the purport in little backgrounds. That's all. Most of us know the story of Mahabharata. So we might have watched the Mahabharata serial and everything. So probably at this point, I can understand that there are not many doubts will be there. So again, thank you very much for joining this week. So we will continue next week on the second subsection of the first section of the first chapter. That will be verses 1.12 to 1.20.
Thank you very much, Swamiji.
Thank you very
Thanks.
much.